And hello, Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Welcome to another episode of Steelers Friday Night Six Pack. I'm your host, as always, Tony Defio, and I thank you for joining me on this lovely and pleasant and mild Friday evening in Pittsburgh. And as I always say, I hope it's pleasant and mild and nice and everything wherever you are in Steeler Nation, whether it's this Friday night listening live or in the future listening on some audio platform of your choosing. I hope you're having a pleasant summer. It's almost over, but you still have a ways to go. So, but the good news for the summer being almost over is it's almost fall, which means it's almost real football season. And the Steelers are on the eve of their second preseason game as I'm doing this show. So we're gonna have a lot to talk about tonight. But before I get into that, I wanted to please, as I always do, ask you to like and subscribe to our Behind the Steel Curtain YouTube channel. We bring you live shows each and every night and day. If you were tuning in or streaming in earlier, you saw the Touchdown Under show with Matty Peverall and Mark Davison, the blokes from Down Under in Australia. And that comes to you every Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Of course, there's this show, and then we have the Steelers Q&A on every Sunday night. That's for a few more weeks anyway. Monday night we have the Hangover with Brian, and we have Shannon White, and it's a great show. It's one of our more popular shows. Tuesday night we have the Scobro show with Dave and Rich, Dave Schofield and his brother Rich Schofield. Wednesday night we have Know Your Enemy during the regular season, which we're kind of in now since preseason has begun. And that's with Jeffrey Benedict and Shannon White. And there's usually a special guest that discusses that week's Steelers opponent. It's a really great show. I love it. It's every Wednesday at 9 o'clock. Thursday, we have the Steelers preview. That's with Jeff Hartman and Dave Schofield and Brian Anthony Davis, our podcasting producer. Let's see. We have Sunday. We have Here We Go, the Steelers show. It's with Brian. I think he had Kevin Smith on the other day. They were previewing the Seahawks game, but I think you can usually catch that on Sundays. We have the Rerun North. That's with Kevin Tate, and he has a host of friends where they discuss all things in the AFC North. Gives you a great perspective of what else is going on in the tough Steelers division. And, of course, you can catch all those live shows after the fact on any audio platform. And you can also catch those live on Facebook. And then we have a whole host of audio-only shows that, again, you can catch on any audio platform of your choosing. Wherever you find podcasts, you can find our shows. It's a growing podcasting family. And, of course, we have Let's Ride with Jeff Hartman. We have the Stat Geek, Dave Schofield. We have the Steelers Fix with Jeremy Betts and Andrew Wilbar. We have From the Cutting Room Floor with Jeffrey Benedict. Let's see what else we have. What Ian's talking about with Kyle Kreis and his friends. And I think, is that it for the live? We have Mike Tomlin during the season. We'll have Mike Tomlin's post-game press conference breakdown with Jeff Hartman usually. And any kind of breaking news, we bring that to you in a audio only kind of platform. So please check that out. And, of course, check out Behind the Steel Curtain, the website. We bring you news, commentary, film breakdown, anything Steelers related that's going on in the world. We're going to get it to you as fast as possible. Anybody with a hard opinion, they're going to write it for you. Anybody with stats, they're gonna write those for you. And anybody who wants to break down the film and show it to you, those experts, they're gonna bring that to you too. So please check that out. It is your one-stop shop for all your Steelers needs. And let's check out the live chat and see who we have. And we have Kathy Ford, one of our legendary guests. She was first one in. Jared Devil, second, but he has a good record of being number one. But tonight he happened to be second. Ken Boyle joins us from Facebook. Claude Bishop, as always, joins us from YouTube. Let's see, scroll down if we have anybody else before I continue with tonight's Steelers Freak. Always a regular. Always bringing the opinions. Fraser Jerry. Says, "What's up, Tony? I'm doing great, Frazier." Benjamin Bennett from YouTube. Ernesto Ortega from Facebook. So we have a fine crew tonight. And they're probably pretty pumped up after last week's preseason game, a 32-25. The Kudos with us. 32-25 victory over who they play? The Seahawks at Acrisure Stadium. And as far as preseason games go, as far as first preseason games go, it was pretty exciting. It was actually pretty entertaining. Obviously, the big news going in was going to be the play of the three quarterbacks, the veteran Mitch Trubisky, the rookie first-round pick, Kenny Pickett, and, of course, the veteran backup, Mason Rudolph. And I think they all acquitted themselves quite well. Trubisky came in, played 2 series, completed 4 of 7 passes, a touchdown to Gunnar Olszewski. And I thought he looked okay. I thought he looked more than okay. I thought he looked solid. And, they quickly took him out. Mike Tomlin removed him for Mason Rudolph, who, again, I thought looked pretty good. He threw a pretty touchdown pass to George Pickens, the new Mr. Everything, the new Camp Darling. It was a beautiful pass, a beautiful catch. He played the rest of the first half. I think they got another field goal. And then Kenny Pickett came in the second half. He looked really, really good. He completed 13 to 15 passes, 95 yards, 2 touchdowns. He threw the game winner to Tyler Vaughn's young receiver with seconds left. And, I thought as far as, you're looking at the first game ever in the post-Big Ben era, albeit a preseason game, but it's a game that you have to find a lot of answers to questions. And I thought the quarterback play was really, really hopeful. I thought it was really, really encouraging. And, as I said on the Hangover on Monday, and as I've written about this week, they talk about a competition, but it really doesn't seem like a competition at this point. It seems like Mitch Trubisky is the guy that they really want to start. And, as evidenced by the fact that he started on the game and really was out of there really quick. That's what you would do normally with a starter. When Ben would play, Ben Roethlisberger, when he would play in the preseason over his last 6-7 years, he played basically 2 or 3 series in that third preseason game. And then they got him out of there. The only difference this year is Trubisky played in the first preseason game, and he's going to play again in the second preseason game. But I think that's for a reason, because they want to see what they have in him. They want to see what they have in all these guys heading into the season. You can't just assume that Trubisky is going to be your starter based on training camp reps. You have to see him in game action, and you can't just I don't think he's earned the right just yet to get the Ben treatment. So yeah, he's probably going to play. I don't know if he's going to play the third preseason game, but I'm certainly not shocked that he's going to play in the first 2. But the fact that he started the first 2, to me, that tells me that they want him to be the starter in week 1. Now Kenny Pickett's coming in second this time instead of Mason Rudolph, who came in after Trubisky last week. And as Mike Tomlin said in his press conference on Thursday, I believe, when he announced the rotation for Saturday's game against the Jaguars, he wants Pickett to see some varsity level action, meaning maybe some first stringers, some second stringers for sure, and maybe play with the 1s and the 2s. I don't know how that's gonna be divvied up. It's hard to say in preseason action. I certainly don't expect much participation as far as the starters, the important starters anyway, the valuable starters on defense. I expect it to be much like last week. Maybe you'll see a Alex Highsmith in there, maybe a Alualu, in his return to Jacksonville. But I certainly don't expect Cam Hayward to be in there, or T.J. Watt, or Minka Fitzpatrick, or even Larry Ogunjobi, who he's looking good in practice from what I understand, but he's certainly not fully recovered from that foot injury he had. So As far as the offensive side, getting back to the quarterback play, last week, Deontay Johnson didn't play, Chase Claypool didn't play, Najee Harris didn't play, Pat Freiermuth didn't play, Zach Gentry didn't play. And I don't know what Tomlin has planned for those guys tomorrow. Is Trubisky going to have his full complement of skill position players? I certainly don't anticipate Najee Harris playing. But as far as the other receivers, Claypool and Johnson, the other starters, I should say, that's going to be interesting to see if they play. Calvin Austin III, who suffered an injury prior to last week's game. From what I understand, he didn't play last week. He was in a boot on the sideline. And I was listening to Ray Fittipaldo, who's a Steelers beat writer for the Post-Gazette, and he does not anticipate Austin playing again on Saturday. So I don't know what these quarterbacks are going to have in terms of their skill position players, but Pickett's definitely going to get a chance to play with the starting O-line, I would imagine, and with people like Pickens, which is going to be huge. Maybe Freiermuth, maybe Zach Gentry. So it's going to be exciting to see what he does, because he showed me a lot last week in his NFL debut. Yes, he threw the ball. He got rid of the ball in a hurry in a lot of occasions. He didn't really go downfield all that much, but he showed enough poise, I think. Because he wasn't in there with his starting O-line. Again, he was in there with not even the backups. He was in there with the third and fourth stringers by the time he got in there. So he was doing a lot of scrambling, and I thought he held up pretty well in that regard. But if he's gonna get some time with the ones and the twos, definitely the twos on Saturday, I want to see how far he's progressed as far as being able to maybe read through his progressions a little bit more this time, maybe take some more shots downfield, maybe sort of try to do what one of his, like I talked about last week, when maybe his biggest strength right now as a passer is throwing on the run. Maybe do a little bit more of that on Saturday. I think in his first game against Seattle, he kind of held onto the ball a little bit too long, and he got sacked a couple of times. So I want to see what he does there. But, it's going to be a good test for him, because, everybody was glowing about his performance last week. Everybody was just really, really impressed. But, again, it was against lower level competition. He was playing with lower level competition. That's also important, as far as giving him the benefit of the doubt. But you want to see what he does against stiffer foes, stiffer competition. Maybe against the defense, it's going to be maybe scheming a little bit. Who knows how these teams are going to handle which games as far as dress rehearsals. Are they going to go with the second game, the third game? I don't know. But I'm pretty excited to see what he does. But I'm not gonna, obviously draw any conclusions if he has a bad game. I expect at some point he's going to struggle as a rookie quarterback, whether it's in the preseason or if he does play in the regular season in his rookie year. I expect him at some point he's going to struggle. It's a tough position to learn, arguably the toughest position in all of team sports to master. So I'm certainly not going to base anything off of. I'm not going to form a hard opinion on Kenny Pickett based on one half of play last week, and I certainly wouldn't go in the other direction as far as a negative opinion if he has a bad game on Saturday. But I am interested to see how far he's progressed since the beginning of training camp. We heard reports that he was kind of lost and maybe not impressing those in attendance. So that's Kenny Pickett. As far as Mason Rudolph, according to Tomlin, he's going to play third. So I expect him to play third quarter, maybe into the fourth. Maybe Oladokin will finally get a chance to make an appearance. But I thought Rudolph, again, I thought he played well last week. But I also am not that shocked that he's not getting, a whole lot of praise from the fans, and even the media is not really. It seemed like the people who are in attendance at training camp, or who were in attendance at training camp before they broke camp on, I think it was Thursday, they broke camp. The people who are there say that he looks great and he looks the most consistent, but you don't hear a whole lot of that on the talk shows. And I guess maybe because people are of the opinion that Rudolph has no real chance to win the starting job. It's of course, I don't think anybody other than Trubisky has a chance to win the starting job. I think it's his job. The only thing that would cause him to lose it at this point is if he struggles for a long period of time once the regular season starts. I don't think anything that Kenny Pickett does from now until the start of the season is going to earn him the job, because I think Mike Tomlin, being the veteran coach that he is, and all the rumors you heard prior to the draft and prior to them signing Mitch Trubisky was that he wanted a veteran for 2022. So I think he's going to feel more comfortable starting with Trubisky, no matter what Kenny Pickett does. But he's clearly Pickett's clearly the future of the franchise, and he's going to start at some point, whether it's at some point in 2022 or certainly by 2023. I think if he keeps improving, there's no sense in keeping him on the bench past 2022. So, but as far as Mason Rudolph, he was booed when he came in, and I wrote about it, and it got a large response, and it was debated about, and of course, other people have been debating it all week, and the people who pushed against me, pushing against them for booing Rudolph, they were like, "Oh, we're allowed to boo him. We paid, people paid money to see that game. They can boo Mason Rudolph. It's their right." Yeah, no kidding. Nobody said it wasn't your right to boo, but doesn't mean that that I can't call you out on it. But my larger point wasn't that you booed Mason Rudolph; it's that you booed him when he came in the game. And to me, as I talked about on Monday on The Hangover, it represented so much of what I would see from fans in the past, prior to Ben Roethlisberger coming here and becoming the savior in 2004. It was they totally rejected Rudolph a long time ago, and there's no winning them back. And I've seen it so many times, and to me, it just doesn't. When you have that mentality, that mindset, then you become too close-minded about the possibility of this guy maybe at the very least improving as a quarterback. And I think he showed that last week, that he has improved as a quarterback. He looks more comfortable. He looks more decisive. Yeah, he made some questionable throws there, but there are also questions that, Connor Hayward, who is a rookie tight end / H-back / Mr. Everything, that he didn't run the proper route. But, depending on how you feel about Mason Rudolph, you're going to have an opinion one way or another about that. But I think once you go into a game with the mindset that you're going to boo Mason Rudolph no matter what, then you close yourself off to the possibility of him improving. And I think he looked pretty good last week. Does that mean I think he's going to be the starter? No, I don't think he's going to be. I don't think he really has a shot at all of being the starter. I never really did. I think it'd be a neat story if he did win the starting job, but he lost any real chance of that happening when they signed Mitch Trubisky, and then when they drafted Kenny Pickett. That the writing was on the wall for him. But it doesn't mean that he hasn't improved as a quarterback. And, the rumors of him possibly being traded to the Lions or the Jaguars or who the Jets or all these other teams. I mean, I guess, if the rumors were out there, there might be some truth to it. But if it were me, I would keep him for 2022. To me, having an experienced backup quarterback, even if he's your third stringer over the course of the year, is far more valuable than a 5th or 6th round pick for 2023. I think we saw what happened in 2019 after they, 1 year after they cut Landry Jones, they traded Josh Dobbs, and they decided that they were going to go to camp or they were going to go into the season with Mason Rudolph as a backup, and then Devlin Hodges was he the third stringer to open that year, or was it Paxton Lynch? Either way, by the end of the year, they had to use Devlin Hodges, who was an undrafted free agent who didn't even play Division I or whatever they call it. I mean, not that necessarily matters, but that's how far down they had to reach to find a starter to get them through the season. So, to me, if you have a veteran like Trubisky, and something happens to him, and you have Rudolph on the bench to go to for, just say, even for a game, to get you through a game, to me, I think that's better than throwing Pickett out there on a moment's notice as a rookie, and maybe in a situation that might be too much for him in that moment. Not that I think that would happen for him necessarily, because I am very impressed with his maturity and his poise. But I think it'd be beneficial for them to keep Rudolph around, just maybe to be a spot starter every now and then. Now, if something were to happen to Trubisky long term, I think you go with Pickett, or if you want to bench Trubisky long term for whatever reason, I think you go with Pickett, the young guy. I think that's what you do, because he's your future, and just put him in there and let him learn and grow. But as far as like a spot starter or somebody who can come in mid game and who's done that in the past, I think Rudolph would be beneficial in that role. So to me, that's more valuable for 2022 than cutting or trading Rudolph and having a total unknown, like two unknowns behind Trubisky. I mean, think about that, because if you keep Trubisky as your starter and you have Pickett as your backup, and you keep Oladokin as your third stringer, which I don't even know why they would do at this point, because he barely played in training camp, let alone in a preseason game. He didn't play at all last week. So to have a veteran and two inexperienced guys as you're filling out your quarterback depth chart, I don't know if that's necessarily a smart idea. So that's all I want to say about the quarterbacks. As far as the rest of last week's game, or the rest of the participants, I should say, obviously George Pickens. What more can you say about him? A lot more. But as far as what he did in the game, that beautiful 26-yard touchdown where he had showed tremendous concentration and agility as he got both feet in bounds. It was a thing of beauty. And he showed great body control on another pass from Rudolph later in that game. Spinning to his left and getting both feet in. Again, great body control. And even if you look at the highlights, the Seahawks players on the sideline were kind of laughing, like as if to say, "Who's this young guy?" This guy's going to be trouble. That's kind of what I took from it. So he was fantastic. And I mentioned Connor Hayward, the 6th round pick out of Michigan State, the Cam's little brother. And I thought he showed great athleticism. He's 5'11" or 6 foot, whatever. And 240, 50 pounds, whatever he is. And he's a tight end. That's what they're playing him as. And looking at the guy, you wouldn't feel confident that he would be an athletic tight end, but he showed great athleticism at college, making acrobatic catches, and he showed that again on Saturday. The 2 catches he had for 24 yards, both of them were your prototypical tight end catches, where he had to catch away from his body and catch it in stride. And, you expect like a lumbering fullback type of a player to kind of, catch the ball, in his body, in his chest, and cradle it and that kind of thing. But no, he looked like a natural receiver. So, I mean, I don't, at this point, he has a lot of momentum, a lot of fan support. But he is a 6th round pick. So we'll see, if he's done enough, if he continues to improve and continues to do enough to make the team. Marvin Leal looked pretty good in his debut. Mark Robinson, the 7th round pick out of Ole Miss. I mean, he didn't do a whole lot during the game. He wasn't really somebody that you would notice, but at the end, with a minute and change left, he blitzed Drew Lock, and he looked like Greg Lloyd, really. I mean, he looked like Greg Lloyd stripping Lock of the ball, and Pittsburgh recovered, and they, setting up the game winner. So I think it was a great and fun debut for Pittsburgh's rookie class. Overall, it's probably mixed bag for the line. Obviously, Dan Moore got beat pretty bad on Mason Rudolph's first pass of the night, which the defender that Moore was blocking stripped Rudolph of the ball. He recovered it, but that led to more boos for Rudolph. But obviously, Dan Moore, everybody realized right away that he got beat on that play. But he also, he didn't do that great on that play, but he did a great job, and I think, and sealing off the edge during McFarland's, 26-yard run to begin the game, 30-yard run, whatever that was. And overall, I thought the line did great in run blocking. 185 yards overall is what the Steelers had against the Seahawks. But they look kind of shaky in pass protection. So, there's obviously a lot of work to do there. But like I keep saying, these issues with the line weren't going to be fixed overnight. They had to totally overhaul the unit last year. And they found a couple of good players, at least one anyway, and more, or I should say promising players anyway. And then they brought in Mason Cole and James Daniels, the right guard, the center and right guard respectively. So, these guys are going to have to get used to playing with one another. I don't know very much about O-line play, but I've heard enough experts talk about it to know that getting used to playing together is almost as important as winning individual battles. So these guys are going to need time. That's just how it's going to be. There's going to be some growing pains with these guys, like you saw with Dan Moore. Even Daniels missed an assignment on a blitz early in the game. So again, it's gonna take more time for these guys to gel as a unit. So to me, that's what 2022 is about for a lot of these young players. It's a young team. It's a young roster. And, Pittsburgh has to find out about some of these guys. There's always talk about bringing in a high-profile veteran free agent or a high-profile guy like Roquan Smith, who, he's a line on defense, who maybe once traded. There's always that kind of talk. But at some point, you have to find out what you have with these younger players on your roster, guys that you just drafted not long ago. You can't always try to solve every problem with a high-profile fix. Sometimes you just have to accept there are going to be some bumps and bruises along the way, so to speak. There are going to be some broken eggs on the way to making your omelet, and you just have to live with that. And that's how young players get better, through experience, through making mistakes and learning from them and growing from that. I always cite Vince Williams as a great example. His rookie year, 2013, he was sixth round pick out of Florida State. And, they lost Larry Foote that year in the first week. They lost him for the year with, I guess, was a torn ACL or something. And they had to throw Williams in there. He wasn't really ready, but he started 11 games. He had a lot of ups and downs that year. He was ultimately kind of replaced by the end of the year. But obviously, how his story ended or unfolded in Pittsburgh after that. He became a leader on that defense eventually. So sometimes you have to let these young players go through some stuff and learn how to get better on the fly. As far as the defense, it's hard to evaluate the defense because everybody that was important essentially didn't play in that game. You're talking about the vital members of that defense. TJ Watt didn't play. Hayward didn't play. Ogunjobi didn't play. Alualu didn't play. Highsmith didn't play. Fitzpatrick didn't play. So that's going to be a big part of your defense moving forward. So to me, I realized that the run defense looked bad again. But to me, it's almost impossible to evaluate if they've improved in that department based on who was out. Now you might say, well, what about the offense? You just praised the offense for running the ball really well they were playing against the Seahawks second stringers and everything. Why did they get praised? Well, because they struggled in that department mightily last year. So any kind of sign of progress is good, even if it's against another team's backups. Pittsburgh, we kind of know what, based on past experience, that if Ogunjobi and Alualu are playing, they're pretty good against the run. And Ogunjobi is Tuitt's replacement, who just retired, and Alualu's back after missing all last year. So, you didn't have Alualu last year. You didn't have Tuitt last year because he was out all year. So now you have Alualu back, and Ogunjobi is Tuitt's replacement. So, everything else being equal with Watt, Highsmith, and Hayward back in there, if you have Alualu and Ogunjobi joining those three, you have to assume that they're going to be better at run defense because Alualu thrived at that the last 2 years before he got hurt. So that's why I'm willing to give the defense a pass because who you saw in there last week, as far as the defensive line, these are guys who struggled last year stopping the run. So what makes anybody think that collectively they're going to be able to they're going to improve? Maybe individually some of those guys improved. I don't know. I'm not an expert in that department, but collectively as a group, it's hard to expect those guys to improve when they're or show great results, I should say, when that when the season starts, they're going to be role players. They're going to be rotated in, but the main guys in that line weren't even in there on Saturday. So, as far as the rest of the defense, I thought Trey Norwood looked really, really good. I was impressed by him. Kazee, I was impressed by him. Arthur Millette, I love that guy. I just think I liked him a lot last year. I thought he played with a lot of energy last year and an edge. And I think he showed that again on Saturday playing from the slot. Bush, Devin Bush going back to inside linebacker. That wasn't a good night for him. And he followed it up by not kind of holding himself accountable when asked about it throughout the week. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of that guy. I kind of gave up a while ago on thinking he could be Shazier's true replacement because Shazier flashed right away. His very first preseason game, he showed you that he had the potential to be a special player, and ultimately he proved to be that guy. Whereas Devin Bush, even before he got hurt, he never showed that kind of promise. Now, can he be a pretty good player? I'm still hopeful for that he can get over his issues with contact based on hopefully just being afraid of injuring his knee again, and he can turn himself into a pretty good inside linebacker, which for a 10th overall pick is not what you want, but at this point I'm willing to settle for that rather than this guy being an out and out bust, which looks like he might be heading in that direction. So I'm anxious to see what he does on Saturday against the Jaguars. Let's see, one more thing I want to talk about. I kind of skipped over it when talking about the offense, and that was the running game. I thought overall, I did talk about the running game, but as it pertained to the offensive line, as far as the running backs, Anthony McFarland looked great. The short time he was in there, Jaylen Warren impressed everybody. He was another Camp Darling that people were excited about. Even Master Teague looked pretty good. And of course, unfortunately for him, he was injured and was waived last week, so he won't be, as far as we know, he won't be back. So overall, I mean, I think it was a good showing for the backup running backs. Does this mean that Benny Snell is gonna lose his job? I don't know. I mean, Brian talks about this all the time, and I echo his thoughts because it's something I didn't really think about till he brought it up. Does it really matter who the backup running back is? And that might seem silly to you, but really, when you go through recent Steeler history, has there ever, other than D'Angelo Williams, has there ever been a real primary, is there really a true backup? Has there ever been a true backup running back where the guy's designated as the backup and he only comes in? I remember those 90s Steelers teams. There were a lot of running backs that helped, that helped, that contributed during the game. It wasn't just one guy. I mean, they went 3 or 4 deep sometime during the game. Remember, obviously when Bettis was in his heyday, Willie Parker was getting reps. Deuce Staley, Ron Haynes, so it wasn't just there wasn't just one backup running back. It didn't just go like 2, 3, and 4 behind the starter. It was a mix, and they mixed and matched based on situations. So, people are hoping that Benny Snell gets demoted or cut, but really, the important thing is that they find the best 3 or 4 running backs. Obviously, in addition to Harris, they find 2 or 3 guys who can fill out that roster and who can contribute whenever they're in the game. As far as who the primary backup is, that's not like other positions. I don't think it doesn't really matter all that much. All right, I have a $5 super chat I got to get from Thanks Mean Joe, and thank you for the $5. And he says, Do you see any scenarios Steelers would pursue Roquan Smith as rumored, maybe trade involving Bush? I do not. And the reason why I say that is, like I mentioned earlier, and by the way, thanks again for the $5. The reason why I say no is because they paid TJ Watt $80 million. They just paid Minka 30-some million in guaranteed money. Cam Hayward, his average salary is like $17-18 million a year. Bottom line is they have the most expensive defense in the NFL. Certainly one of the most expensive, highest paid, I should say. And Roquan Smith's biggest issue right now is he wants to be the highest paid inside linebacker in the NFL. So just because he wants traded from the Bears doesn't mean, it's going to solve all the problems if he gets traded to another team. He's still going to want that team to work out a new deal for him. And, you have to think about salary cap issues at this point when you're talking about throwing so much money on one side of the ball. I mean, sooner or later you just have to say, we got to figure these issues out in house, or with cheaper alternatives. And they seem to like Robert Spillane. I realize he's not a superstar, but if Miles Jack is a really good, athletic, dependable linebacker in the mold of a Shazier or what they hope Devin Bush would be, not that I'm saying Miles Jack is anywhere near what Shazier was in his prime, but if he can be 3/4 of that, say, then maybe, the guy who's playing alongside him, he doesn't have to be a superstar. He can be just solid. And that's maybe where Spillane comes in. Although there's talk that they're going to be playing a lot of dime defenses this year and Jack would be the only inside linebacker on the field. So, do you want to bring in another high-priced inside linebacker? If although I guess if you have two guys like that, you wouldn't need to play dime. But I just don't see them pursuing Smith because of what I said earlier about the overall price tag of the defense right now. You have so many high-priced players on that side of the ball, and if you bring Smith in, he's going to want to join those guys. I don't think he's going to stop being disgruntled because he comes here. His main issue is he wants paid, and the Bears aren't willing to pay him. So whoever does acquire him in a trade is going to have to work out a deal with him. If Bush can recover or improve to the point where he's pretty good, well, I think that would solve a lot of their problems at inside linebacker. But I think it's I think critical or more important for them to try to give Bush one more year to try to finally break through. I think that might be more beneficial to their future rather than bringing in Roquan Smith. I think if they were, and I've said this in the past, I said about left tackle, and I'll say it about this position too. If they were truly one player away from being a bona fide contender, then maybe you may move for a Roquan Smith, or maybe you're a little bit too leery of Dan Moore's inexperience and pedigree, so you go out and you get a veteran left tackle, something, or your left guard, whatever. But the Steelers are in a position right now where they're not considered a serious contenders, and they're also one of the youngest teams in the NFL. So I think, again, this is a year where you maybe find out about some people. You find out about once and for all about Devin Bush, and if he doesn't show any real improvement, you move on. Maybe you can find out some things about Buddy Johnson, who was a 4th-round pick last year. Maybe Robert Spillane benefits from playing alongside a dynamic linebacker like Miles Jack. I don't think he's what he used to be, meaning Miles Jack, but he's still pretty darn good. And by all accounts, he's been really, really effective in training camp, and he was in Saturday's first preseason game. So maybe Spillane will benefit from playing alongside a guy like that, because he never has really had that kind of guy since he's been here, because he had to come in and take over for Bush. And his fellow inside linebacker 2 years ago was Vince Williams, who was one of my favorite Steelers, but he was not Ryan Shazier. He was Robert Spillane type player, not Ryan Shazier type player. And last year, Joe Schobert struggled, and of course Bush struggled. So he's never, Spillane has never really had that solid, dynamic, caliber inside linebacker to play next to. So maybe he'll benefit greatly from that this year. So I think you have to find out about those guys once and for all this year. And, down the road, if you feel like you're like 2023, 24, if you feel like you're ready to to take that leap and bring in a star player to round out your roster to be the final piece, then you do that. But not this year. I don't think they have to do that this year. So what else we have here? George OTJ says of Bush, his attitude sucks. He should not be a Steeler. Well, he's still pretty young. He's 23. Maybe he'll look back on this time in his life and go, what was I thinking with those answers? Why was I so cocky and irritable? And hopefully he'll be looking back after a lengthy, decorated career as an inside linebacker. Who knows? But right now, I think it's important that they find out about him once and for all, and they give him one more year to shape up or ship him out next year, meaning let him walk. And this is more from George, who says, I was hopeful George could develop from first year. He had an injury, and I was patient and hopeful, but his attitude, he expounds on the attitude, his attitude totally sucks. And I think, he definitely struggled last year. Obviously, I think he and Schobert and Spillane, all those inside linebackers were hurt by the fact that there were problems on the defensive line. And as I said earlier in the show, I kind of gave up on thinking that Bush was on the level of a Shazier, and maybe a Shazier could have made a difference playing behind a compromised defensive line, but clearly Bush could not, and Schobert. So that's another thing that I'm hopeful about with these inside linebackers is that they'll benefit greatly from having what I think could be a fantastic defensive line if all three of those veteran players are healthy and play all year. There's another one from a different George Rice from YouTube, who says, my first Steeler jersey is a Bush jersey. Damn, how dumb am I? I'll trade it for an Artie Burns if anyone is interested, or maybe a Jarvis Jones would be okay. Well, I mean, that's you have the right to say that now because he hasn't given you any reason to say otherwise. But again, hopefully he has a breakthrough this year and finally starts to play like the player they wanted him to be, or at least close to it when I drafted him 3 years ago. People may maybe forget this, but Lawrence Timmons, his first 3 or 4 years were really, really inconsistent. Now, he showed a lot more than Bush has shown at this point, or up to this point. But his first few years, people were waiting for him to put it, because he looked, I mean, the talent was evident when you saw the guy play. And he did have flashes of brilliance from time to time. But it took him, I'd say, 3 or 4 years to really put it together and start playing like the 15th overall pick, which is what he was in 2007. And when he did put it all together, he was a machine. I mean, he was, he was fantastic. So maybe there's that level of play in Devin Bush just yet. I think 2022 will tell us pretty much all we need to know about Devin Bush. If there's no improvement at all, then it's probably likely there never will be with that guy. And this one from Thanks Mean Joe. He says, thanks, Tony. I wasn't aware Smith was seeking that type of payday. Just thought he wanted out of Chicago. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's more than one reason why he wants out of Chicago. A lot of people seem to want out of Chicago. But one of the reasons is he wants a new contract. And I don't know, it's like, I forget the safety's name from the Jets last year. People wanted them to bring him in and play alongside Fitzpatrick. But his main issue of wanting out of New York is he wanted to be the highest paid safety in the NFL at that point. Sam Robinson asks, how long are the Steelers going to hold on to Rudolph? Well, if you believe the rumors, they might not be holding on to him much longer because he was rumored to be a candidate to be traded to the Lions. But if that doesn't happen, I fully expect them to hold on to Rudolph for one more year, and then he'll be a free agent next year. And why would he come back? If he still has aspirations to start in the NFL, clearly Kenny Pickett's the future, and Rudolph would be foolish to come back here if he still thinks he can start in the NFL. So for no more than one more year, I would imagine. But I don't know why fans are eager to see him go. I mean, again, give me the player. I mean, the season's about to start. Give me the player over the future mid-level draft pick. I mean, whatever. I'd rather have the player for this year because I think that benefits them more than some fifth-round pick for 2023. What do I care about that now? I mean, I'm in season mode. I'm in regular season mode. I want the best 53 players to help the Steelers try to have the best season they can have in 2022. All right. And this is one from Steelers Freak, and he says, "Too bad Bush doesn't have Spillane's heart." Well, I mean, we don't know if heart is necessarily the entire equation. I mean, for all of Spillane's heart, I mean, he's probably not even at this point on the level of a struggling Devin Bush. So, the whole want to play hard, rah stuff, that's cool and fun and everything. But really, at the end of the day, it comes down to talent. And maybe Bush's main issue is he just doesn't have the talent that they thought he did when they brought him when they drafted him. Sometimes even top 10 draft picks can be busts, and it has nothing to do with heart or desire. It's just they just don't have what people thought they had to make it as a pro. But it is hard to question people like Steelers Freak for questioning Devin Bush's heart when he makes statements like he did the other day, saying, "Well, hey, if I don't stick around here, I'll still be in the NFL." So seems to be a sense of entitlement there. He does come from a NFL family, so maybe he thinks that he's entitled to a career in the NFL because his dad played in the NFL. I don't know, but I don't know if it seems to be like that he's afraid of contact. That's what it seems to be, but maybe he just doesn't have what it takes to be an NFL linebacker. Those things have happened before. All right. And this is, he says, "We will know when the Steelers are truly a contenders," from Steeler Freak, "when players like Von Miller and his carpetbag wants to join." Well, I mean, can you blame Von Miller for wanting to? You see what they paid him? The Bills paid him. I mean, I'd call me a carpetbagger all day long. You can call me whatever you want for that kind of money, but that's what I mean. The Bills are primed and ready to win the AFC at the very least. And they went out and they were aggressive in bringing in somebody like Von Miller and paying him the kind of money that they paid him. But I don't think Pittsburgh's quite there just yet. But if they do get to that point in a year or two, then that's when you go for you get aggressive when it comes to areas that you consider to be weaknesses. But I think right now, they owe it to themselves to find out more about players like Dan Moore and no pun intended, and Kendrick Green, Kevin Dotson, those kind of players on their team. They have youth on their side, but with youth comes inexperience. So you have to see if they can grow as their NFL careers progress. This is one from Jeremiah Yoder from YouTube, and he asked, "Will the QB play in the next two games determine who wins the job and starts at the opener? Is it Trubisky 1, Pickett 2, and Rudolph 3? I don't know. I don't really know the order after number 1, but I do think that Trubisky is the starter. I think the way they've handled it up to this point, if they thought that if it was a true competition, I think you would have seen more of that in training camp as far as who played with the ones. By all accounts, Trubisky played the majority of the snaps with the ones in training camp. And the fact that he started last week and only stayed in 2 series, and the fact that he's going to start tomorrow, or meaning Saturday, against the Jaguars, and probably only play a quarter, if that, I think that tells me that they want him to be the starter. So I really don't think it's a competition. As far as 2 and 3, maybe there's a possibility there that they want. They think Pickett could be the backup, so they're going to give him that chance over these next 2 games. So we'll see how that goes. But at the end of the day, I would still keep Rudolph, whether he's your backup or your third stringer. I would keep him on the roster for the rest of 2022. He's cheap. He's going to be gone next year anyway. The most you're going to get for him is the 5th or a 6th round pick. You might as well just keep the player, because you never know. He might have to bail you out at some point and during the regular season. All right. Let's see. We have anything else here? No. Well, we just have some other stuff, but I've talked so long tonight that we're almost up against the hour. So I should probably call it a night. It was a very fun night, and we had a lot of great stuff to talk about. I think we covered a lot of good ground. Hopefully, it was insightful for you guys out there in Steelerland, and I hope you enjoy Saturday's game. More questions will be answered. I'm sure more questions will come up, but that's the beauty and the fun of the preseason. Please check back all weekend long. Check back on our podcast channel and check back on the editorial side. We're going to have some great stuff for you. And until I talk to you again, have a great weekend and go